before we started, could you please give a short introduction for our viewers?
My name is Hector FrosT Rosario. I am the coach of Global Esports. I have coached 100 Thieves, FURIA, and Talon Esports previously.
Okay. I watched your podcast, SpikeTalk. It was very impressive. Yeah. I'm curious, why did you start it, and what was your main goal with the show?
So Baby Bay and Steve, the producer, convinced me to do it. And it wasn't something I wanted to do at first, but most of my career in esports, I have been pretty quiet. I've never really done interviews. I don't really talk much to outsiders, but it hurt me because when I interviewed for jobs in Pacific especially, it seemed like nobody knew who I was. That's when I learned that, oh, so a lot of people don't actually pay attention to North American Valorant. And then it seemed like people didn't really know how to vet me. And it was confusing to me at first because I've been in esports a long time, but I think it started to really dawn on me, people don't really know what I've done in other games, CS, Dota, like they don't really, Rocket League. I have a Rocket League World Championship. People don't even realize that.
I saw your part.
Yeah. So it's like, I had to learn that like, okay, well, I might have to make myself more high profile. This is obviously something that Baby Bay told me also. And if we decided to do it, I told Andre, I only really know how to be me. He's like, that's perfect. Like, don't change. Yeah, I went all in right away. So what you see on Spike Talk is pretty much what everyone sees from me all the time.
It's just a fun and easy question. You worked with two great talents, Simple and Primi.
Yes.
Who did you think is more naturally talented?
Primi.
Primi?
Simple worked hard. Simple was a grinder. What Simple became was mainly through hard work and grind. Primi is more naturally gifted than Simple.
I don't expect this.
Yeah.
Now we topic about your transition. First question, could you explain the process of your transition from Talon Esports to Global Esports?
So obviously I thought I was going to Talon. When I wasn't, I called Dr. Rushi and said, so this just happened. Is there a spot available? And I won't say who they were thinking of hiring as a coach, but they were like 24 hours away from hiring a coach. When I became available, they immediately, I guess had an internal meeting. And then, hours later, he came back and said, if you're willing to sign now. Min Song, my GM, was like, now's the time. I said, okay, so now I'm getting like multiple people like, look, it has to be now or never. Obviously, I'm skipping steps, but that's pretty much what happened. When I got there, then it was immediately going to speak to players and try to sign players. Autumn was like this close to going to EMEA, and I just luckily was, we lost someone that is currently, I can't say his name, but someone currently playing in China as a import would have been here if 48 hours before I had told him, so it just, I immediately had to go, okay, what's the team gonna look like? What players can I get, blah, blah, blah. And then, and I'm pretty happy with what I did.
Okay. After joining Global Esports, what change have you experienced in environment, team cultures, or the way the team works?
Organizationally, a lot is different. Management is way more hands-on. At Talon, it was me and a man named Do-Hoon Kim that were solely responsible pretty much everything at Talon Valorant. Here, there are a lot of other management positions that have influence over the team, the structure, with a lot of the things that go on. Talon was also bigger. They had legal, they had so many other games, so that's probably why it was like this. But inside the team, this team speaks English. So for me, it's the first time in 3 years that I'll have a team that speaks my language. Even Udo speaks very good English. So for me, it's like not a single problem. The attitudes of the players are a lot more like mine. The Thai players I had before were not similar to me at all. From everything, from the way we think to how we handle problems to, everything. Here, most of these guys are, so I'd say those are the big differences.
The next next question is, you posted on X that for Talon roster could not move together. Could you explain the detail behind the situation?
Yeah, I talked about it enough. I would just say that I think Riot completely mishandled the situation. I will say something I didn't say anywhere else, but I'll say it here. What I didn't understand about why they made the decision is they pretended as if APAC mattered. Because they said, oh, we want an APAC team. The thing I think is weird is the partnership program is only lasting for 1 more year. Shouldn't the priority of the players come before having an APAC representative? Also, Full Sense was selected. Full Sense was particularly passed on by the same people that are making this decision now in the first place. And given what we know now has happened with both the Tier 2 roster and the negotiations with the main roster, it is very clear why Full Sense wasn't selected in the first place. And what I also did not like is they took the negotiation power away from the players. For instance, they went to Full Sense and said, oh, you guys are gonna be in the league. So you know what Full Sense does? They go, well, sorry players, you're not gonna get what you want. It's our turn now. So the players, in terms of salaries and compensation, they got far below what they would have gotten with any of the other organizations that I brought forward. So it's like, are we really helping the players here or are we really hurting the players? And the other organizations are bigger than Full Sense in the first place. So I'm having a really hard time understanding why we just decided to arbitrarily make this call and force a Thai team, when in reality, if we're being completely honest, they passed over every Thai team to allow a team from Hong Kong to take over Thailand, because they didn't have the trust and the faith in the first place for teams in Thailand. So this whole thing to me is just very confusing. And I think it was just unfair to Cruz, because Riot did a 5-year like celebration of Pacific, and they purposely chose Cruz to be on there, and they're acting as if these people matter to Pacific, when arguably one of the most important people that you have said is in trouble. The first thing you do is not help him and make his life harder. That's just insane to me. It is, I think, both unfair and also pretty sad, because it's pretty much out there now that Cruz is no longer playing. Where if I was here, I wouldn't be going back to Talon if Cruz wasn't playing, right? So if I was going back, he's my IGL. I don't need another IGL.
Okay. First question is, how important do you think it is for coaches to have a media platform to share their thoughts?
I don't know. If you talked to me years ago, I would have said it's not important at all. I think the reason for SpikeTalk and all these other things, so media is important to grow the game. So obviously having access to coaches is important, because some people might want to know what is going on with the team and, blah, 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 blah. And players aren't really going to talk about that stuff. Me, I really don't like interviews. I don't like this sort of stuff, but it's so necessary, because as things are building, as things are growing, it's important, I think, to control the narrative and be either as honest as you can or as manipulative as you can, so that things don't fracture the locker room. There's an example. I was mad at Riot, I think, in 2021, because they kept asking Asuna to do all the interviews. I had Hiko, Nitro, and Steel on the team. They weren't all happy about that, because Hiko was at that point the face of Valorant stream. He was getting like 20K a viewer. Nitro is the most decorated North American professional Counter-Strike player. And Steel has a lot of experience. He was playing longer than both of them. But Riot kept asking for interviews for the rookie. Didn't really go well with those guys. They were complaining to me about, like, dude, what is this? Also, the way you develop young talent, you don't put them in front of a camera every time you can. That is like one of the biggest differences in argument I have with Riot all the time about content. Like last year, even the year before, when we got Primi. Why do you want to put a young kid that is already dealing with the stress of having to perform on stage? Now all of a sudden you're trying to like make him the superstar, the star, when in reality, they're still just trying to figure it out. They're probably not ready to be the person that's on the microphone all the time and talking all the time. For me, it was always Cruz. Cruz is ready. Cruz doesn't mind. So I think it's important for coaches especially to get in front of that, because then we get to sort of like in some way take the bullets for the players. There's a lot of losses I had last year in Pacific which weren't my fault that I take the blame for. Like sometimes that's just part of the job.
Okay, next question is, what was the biggest turning point or major change in your coaching career in Valorant?
When 100 Thieves decided that even though I was right, they should fire me to start over. And they have pretty much sucked ever since. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter where I go. The teams that I'm on, they are always playing better than they were before. Look at FURIA. I was 4-2 in North America, tied for second place at one point, with 5 players that the very next year weren't even in tier 1. You already know about Talon, I don't have to say it. We missed champs, but it's not because we didn't deserve to be at champs. It was because Pacific won everything. So even teams that did very poorly after kickoff in season 1, they had so many points because Pacific just kept winning everything. But if you think about it, we had what, 12 points last year? We qualified for champs with 7 points the year before. We did 5 points better. We were 3rd in season 2. So pretty much back-to-back years, you can say we were a top 4 team. Us not making champs was more like, unlucky. But in reality, we definitely were a champs team, right? We were one round away, 2 different maps, basically. So, yeah.
Next question is, what do you think the Pacific region needs to become more competitive globally?
I think players just need to become smarter. The mechanics are still probably the strongest here.
Next question is, what is your view on the current tier 1 esports system and structure?
Oh, yeah, I kind of talked about that. I think Pacific has an advantage because we get to play more teams, a la China. I think America is at a disadvantage because South America is split, right? If Brazil could play with Brazil and Americas, you'll see way more Brazilian talent be able to come up and level up and develop like you see younger. Look, Patman, Javi, right? Udo, right? These are guys that are not, viewed as major pickups for their country's teams, right? Udo wasn't on T1, Genji. Secret didn't pick up Javi, and the reason that happens is because they think they have more talented players here or like on their team. But in reality, all those teams, the tier 2 teams, get to play against China and us. Eventually, a lot of these guys are gonna become really good. In tier 2, you have like really high highs, but that's only because there's so many skilled players in North America. Like to me, North American tier 2 was very strong and is very strong because a lot of those are because there's only 4 or 5 North American teams. That includes Canada and the US. The US has a population of 330 million. So I think that Pacific has the advantage and is gonna keep the advantage for a very long time.
Okay, next question is, when you joined Talon Esports, it was your first time coaching in the Pacific region instead of North America. How did this challenge begin?
When everyone in America thought I wasn't good enough, I guess, to be in America? I have no idea. It was just, didn't have any opportunities in America except for tier 2. Had a chance to join Fnatic. Fnatic decided to go with someone else. And then Pacific was my option. I had a couple teams interested. It ultimately went down to Talon. And at that point I had to decide, do I want to be in tier 1 in a foreign country? Or do I want to be in tier 2 in my country? I'm very competitive, so I decided to compete in Pacific and figure it out.
Okay, next question is, when was the moment you decided to become a coach?
When I started paying people with my own money. That's what happened in CSGO. Markelov and Blade, both legends. The moment I started paying them money to play for FlipSide, I immediately had to learn CSGO because I'm not about to pay you that much money, not know what is going on. So I learned and I coached, and that's why I coached CSGO, and then the same with Rocket League and fighting games and Crossfire and every other game. It was because the moment I started paying you money, I'm not just gonna give it to you for free. At that time, it was because I didn't have all the money and a big staff, so I had to do it myself. Obviously, nowadays, there's so much money in this that you can specialize in, you know, games and specialize in things. But back then, that's what happened.
Okay, now we talk a topic about coaching philosophy and development. If you have to choose one word to describe your coaching philosophy, what would be and why?
Intelligence. That's the biggest trait that I think any player can have is intelligence. If you're smarter, you don't have to work harder. So that is like the core principle of even, you know, how I teach macro and how I try to help players be more effective in the micro. It's all just about playing smarter, like a lack of a better word. If you're very smart, you can play steps ahead. You can play rounds ahead. You can predict rounds ahead, right? Oh, they have a raise ult. Okay, they're probably gonna do something fast. If not, they're gonna hold it for retake. Or, you know, if they get into trouble, they're gonna use it to get out of a bad area, right? So you need to be able to set that up. Say, okay, everything we do, we need to have a bailout option. Why? Because they have a raise ult, right? Like you have to think about all this stuff. So if you call something, you have to have always in the back of your mind something about their win condition. Their win condition, if you have a raise ult, that's the win condition. You don't know when they're gonna use it. You don't know how they're gonna use it. But every step of your plan, you have to plan for that. That requires high level of intelligence because there are other characters with other ultimates and other abilities, and everything you call, you don't know if you're going to be right most of the time. So you have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Those options lower your ability to shoot. So the more you're thinking, the less you're actually accurate. So the smarter you are, the less you have to think about it. The more your instincts and the more you kind of can process information faster, which then allows you to focus on your crossing.
And I also saw that you're the CEO of FlipSid3 Tactics
Yeah.
before your coaching career.
Yeah.
I'm curious, are you really a rich man?
No.
Could you share a bit of that history?
Actually, FlipSid, I grinded a lot for FlipSid. So started as a player, and then the team that we had was owed money by an organization that's no longer around called Absolute Legends. And then we decided like, hey, let's start our own team. And then it was hard to practice and do all the sponsorship calls and like try to like get us money. And so eventually I got replaced for a player named Sexy Bambo. Then I like became like the head of a team. And then, you know, over the next, I'll say 5 or 6 years, my life became sponsors. So you asked me if I'm rich, you don't even realize like we were doing so many things like consulting. So for instance, I have a pair of Game Zeros here from Sennheiser. We're the reason Sennheiser got into esports. And like I was running fighting game tournaments for Sennheiser, and then I also got them in Counter-Strike, then everybody started to use Sennheiser Game Zero. So that's how FlipSid got the Sennheiser sponsorship. So a lot of that money, almost every dollar that we got from sponsorships or tournaments or things outside went right back in. Even the sticker money from CSGO. The sticker money really just became salaries. It was just like the players really got 100% of it. So it just went like a different way. So like that was basically the entirety of the career. There's a UCLA thing. I don't know if you saw it on my Twitter, but anyways, I did a TED talk at UCLA. In order for me to get there, I had to prove like a lot of things. One of them was I had to show them tax returns. So I had to show them that like, I think it was like 2017. Yeah, 2017 or 2016, 2017 or 2018. I don't know which ones I showed them, but basically FlipSid broke even at that time. In an era where everyone is losing millions of dollars, investing money, we actually were break even. And in order for me to even say that on the stage, UCLA had to know that it was true. So you had to provide the proof first. So like we were like break even competing with all the big guys, but we were literally just, it was like 4 employees. Steve was one of them actually. Steve did content. Producer Steve on SpikeTalk did content for FlipSid at the time. So that's how I know him.
So you earn the money from
Esports. Yeah.
That's how much it is.
So that year it was like 650,000 USD. Like we actually were doing with the staff that we had and with the organization that we had, like the players and like all the divisions and stuff. It's kind of miraculous when you think about like, or when I reflect back, when I look at other organizations in esports now, like Talon, for instance. Talon just failed. But when I look at what I was doing with 4 people and the performance success and the fact that we never took outside money and still could pay salaries and never have that problem. I often look back and I still wonder how we weren't able to ever get investment. But it was just interesting that like, yeah, we did everything break even, and then the reason why FlipSid closed down was because there was just no way I can keep competing with the salaries that were, especially in North America. So I eventually just said, screw it, I'll just work for one of these teams, a la 100 Thieves, you know, and then that's how they got their Valorant division.
Next question is, when selecting players, what quality or criteria do you focus on?
Always changes depending on the roster and sort of what the objectives are. At GE this year, I just needed the talent. I can fill in the blanks with game IQ and my game plans and everything. I needed the talent to be able to compete. So I went for talent first.
First question is, how is the current Global Esports roster structured for the upcoming season?
Autumn will be our captain, but not our IGL. So I think Autumn is, obviously he's made many majors, he's been a professional a long time. He has the most experience, and I think he has the right attitude. To me, he is leadership material. Javi is IGL though. And that seems very unusual for people. It was very unusual to explain this to people at GE too. But I think Javi's a good IGL. He is much further ahead than I thought he would be. But the truth is, he's too inexperienced, I think, to have the leadership role on the team. Crystal is also a big voice on the team, but he knows he's a soldier. Udo knows he's a soldier. Patman is on a revenge tour. He knows he's a soldier. I think everybody knows that, you know, me and Javi are pretty much the voices. Autumn, he's the sheriff, you know. Anybody gets out of line, he's gonna take care of it. But I think we have a good group of guys.
Okay. Next question is, what are your expectations and performance goals for Global Esports in the 2026 season?
The first is not qualifying for champs would be an utter failure. So champs, that's all that matters to me, is winning a world championship. The season and the league, trophy and major trophies, that's cool. But for me, it's just the world championship. So that's the first. The second is something I've told the players already, which is Javi and Patman should now be able to lead next year. After this experience, they should be able to lead a Pinoy super team. Unfortunately, because of what happened in Australia, that plan for Autumn changed. But I told them the same. You should be able to lead an Australian team in Pacific. And then for the rest of the guys like Crystal, if he decides to go to EMEA, he should be ready to IGL now. So I think the short-term goal is champs. The long-term goal is create, hopefully, 3 very strong teams.
Okay, our interview is end. Thank you, Hector.
Thank you.
Food is here.
Yeah, perfect. Yes.